All right, let's dive into the story of a king whose name has become a warning for the ages, Midas. Today, we're going to explore the two iconic myths that really define him.
So what if your greatest wish, the one thing you wanted more than anything in the world, actually turned into your worst nightmare? That's the exact question we're looking at today through the story of a king whose desires led him to legendary wealth, sure, but also to profound suffering. You know, King Midas is really known for two major stories. And what's fascinating is that each one kind of peels back the curtain on a different fundamental human flaw, things we all still struggle with today. So on one side, you've got this story about the golden touch, which is all about unchecked desire, right? Greed. And on the other, you have the donkey ears, a tale of just pure, foolish pride. It's like they're two sides of the same tragic coin. Okay, so let's start with the one most of us are familiar with, the wish for gold. But here's the twist. It doesn't actually start with greed. It starts with an act of kindness, an act of hospitality to a, let's say, an unusual guest. So the story goes a little something like this. Silenus, who happens to be the mentor to the god of wine, Dionysus, gets a little lost and, well, pretty drunk. He's found by some peasants and brought before King Midas. Now Midas, instead of getting angry, recognizes who he is and decides to throw this huge 10-day party for him. As you can imagine, Dionysus is pretty grateful and offers Midas basically anything he wants, a blank check from a god. And this is where Midas makes his famous, fateful choice. He's just totally driven by this desire for wealth, and he says it, "Grant that whatever I touch with my body may be turned to brilliant gold." Man, what a wish. And for a little while, it was amazing. Midas was just over the moon. He's running around, touching everything he can find. He touches an oak twig, boom, solid gold. He picks up a stone, it's now a gold nugget. He's literally living his wildest dream. But you know where this is going, right? A gift this good has to have a catch. This glorious power very, very quickly starts to show its terrifying, hidden dark side. The big uh-oh moment happens at the feast. He sits down, he's hungry, he reaches for a piece of bread, and it just hardens into this useless lump of gold. He tries to take a bite of meat, and it turns into a golden sheet right there in his mouth. Everything he needs to survive is suddenly beautiful, deadly, and completely worthless to him. And here's a really chilling detail that comes from the Roman poet Ovid, who wrote one of the most famous versions of this myth. He describes Midas trying to drink some wine, and he says you could literally see liquid gold flowing through his open jaws. I mean, can you imagine? He's drowning in the very thing he wished for. It's absolutely horrifying. So at this point, he gets it. He's made a huge, catastrophic mistake. He's trapped, starving, and thirsty. So he raises his golden hands to the sky and just begs Dionysus, "I have sinned. Have pity, and save me from this glittering calamity." What a great phrase, glittering calamity. And Dionysus, being merciful, tells him what to do. He says, go wash in the Pactolus River. And as Midas steps into the water, the curse just washes off of him and flows into the river itself. Legend has it, that's why the sands of the Pactolus River have been rich with gold ever since. Now here's something really cool. This is where myth and reality kind of blur together. See, Midas wasn't just some character in a story. The historian Herodotus actually wrote about a real king of Phrygia named Midas, who is known for being incredibly wealthy. In fact, he was one of the first foreigners to dedicate a gift at the famous Oracle of Delphi, and it was a magnificent throne.
Okay, so you think Midas learned his lesson about folly, right? Well, let's jump into the second story. He may have learned his lesson about wealth, but he's about to make a completely different kind of mistake.
This one's about a music contest. On one side, you have the rustic god Pan with his pipes. On the other, the great Apollo himself with his divine lyre. The judge, a mountain god named Timulus, declares Apollo the winner. Pretty much everyone in attendance is like, yep, that makes sense. Everyone except Midas.
Yeah, Midas actually stands up and says the judgment was unfair. He challenges the verdict, and Apollo, the god of music, is not having it. He basically says, ears that foolish shouldn't even look human. And right then and there, he transforms them into the ears of a donkey. Ouch.
So now Midas has this problem. He's been shamed by a god, and he's got this truly embarrassing secret he needs to hide from the world.
He starts wearing this big turban to hide his new ears. But of course, someone has to know. His barber. Now imagine being that barber. You know this huge secret, but you're terrified of what the king will do if you tell anyone. So the barber comes up with this clever, if strange, solution. He goes out to a secluded spot, digs a hole, whispers the secret, "King Midas has donkey's ears," into the ground, and then buries it.
You have to wonder, can a secret ever really be buried? The barber thought so. He thought he'd found a way to get it off his chest without telling a single soul. But what he didn't count on was nature. Because nature, as it turns out, does not keep secrets. A whole year goes by, and right there in that exact spot where he whispered the words, something starts to grow. Yeah, a whole thicket of reeds shoots up from that patch of dirt. It's like the earth itself absorbed the secret, and it was just waiting for the right moment to let it out.
And then it happens. When the wind blows through those reeds, they start to whisper. And what are they whispering? The very words the barber buried. King Midas has donkey's ears. The truth just literally grew right out of the ground for everyone to hear.
So when you put these two stories side by side, what's the big takeaway? I mean, they seem pretty different on the surface, but together they teach us this really powerful, timeless lesson about who we are as people. It goes way beyond just gold or weird ears.
When it all comes down to it, the stories of Midas leave us with this big question. What's the greater folly? Is it wanting the wrong things, like Midas did with gold? Or is it being blind to true beauty and truth, like he was with the music? Ultimately, his tales are a reminder that our flaws, whether they're greed or pride, they always have consequences. And maybe the biggest lesson of all is that the truths we try so hard to bury, well, they always find a way to come to light.